Hello and welcome to Tales from Here to Kingdom Come. My name's Randy Wilson. I'm from the Hindman Settlement School. I'm going to tell some tales, old tales, and tell some tales about these instruments that I'm going to show you. From this instrument to the banjo, from Africa to Appalachia. Tales from Here to Kingdom Come. This here's a berimbau. This is the first stringed instrument. This is what we think is the first stringed instrument right here. A berimbau. It's just it's just a limb. This is Osage orange or hedge apple, and you got a gourd here. I grew the gourd in my garden, and at the end of the season, I dried it out, cut it right across through here, took all the seeds out, and here is the sound box, like a guitar has a sound box. It's made like a bow and arrow, a rhythm bow. This is like the arrow, and this is like the bow. And this is like the string. So, this is a metal string. They'd use like tendons of a deer string. You take this bow and you hit it on the string. And that is the first, I believe, sound of a stringed instrument that we have. Listen to it. What a sound, huh? The rhythm bow or the berimbau. We're going to do a song from Africa. We're going to do a story from Africa with the berimbau, because we think that these instruments began with the invention of the bow in Africa, and a story from Africa to go with it. This is the story of the hyena. Old hyena gets up in the morning. He's looking for something dead that he can eat. He starts running. Running. Over the rocks he goes. Through the high grass. Through the muddy bottom. Running. You're running. One day old hyena was running over the great savannah. He come to the old river. The riverbed was dry. And he saw on one side of the river a dead goat. He said, "Oh, my lucky day, dead goat. I like dead goat." So he ran to the dead goat. He started to eat that goat. But he looked up on the other side of the old river was a dead cow. He said, "Oh, I like dead cow." So he ran over across the river, across that dry bottom to that dead cow. He started to eat the cow, but he thought, if I ate cow, someone get my goat. So he ran back across that river bottom. He started to eat that goat. He said, "Oh, but my cow." Back across he ran. He started to eat the cow. He said, "Oh, no, my goat." Back across, he said, "No, my cow." And back and forth he went, goat, cow, goat, cow, goat, cow, goat, cow, goat, cow, goat, cow, goat, cow. He got so tired, he just laid down in the sandy bottom of that river. high above, the buzzards, they'd been watching old Hyena. And when they saw him lay down so exhausted, a big group of them, big bunch of them, a murder of them landed on that dead cow. And another mort of them landed on the dead goat. And poor old Hyena, he was so tired. He couldn't get them. He couldn't drive them off. He lay on the banks of the river. You know, the old Hyena, he wanted everything, and he ended up with nothing. Don't be like hyena children, running to and fro between everything that you want. You run, you want everything, you end up with nothing. And old Hyena, he is still running. Running over the rocks he goes. Through the high grass, through the muddy bottom. Still running. That's the story of the old hyena. The barren bow, the rhythm bow, first stringed instrument from a bow and arrow. You know, bow and arrow was a great invention. It allowed a little bit more leisure time. So instead of killing something with a bow and arrow, they could start playing something. The first stringed instrument. There's another one here that's played, has been played here in the mountains. This is the mouth bow. Same principle here. And I'll get out something I can play this old mouth bow with. There's a few old-timers that used to play the old mouth bow. You don't see them anymore that I know of. Back about 10 years ago, I guess I recorded a few of those last of the ones who played the old mouth bow. Now I'll get out an old credit card here. It's the best pick you can have for a mouth bow. And probably a good thing to use instead of losing your money with it. You know anybody in the mountains here that play the mouth bow still? I sure would like to know. Put your mouth up against it in a hollow, and your mouth is the sound box. Muskrat, muskrat, what makes your head so brown? I've been living in the ground, boy, to wonder I'm not drowned, drowned, to wonder I'm not drowned. Oh, Peckerwood, Peckerwood, what makes your head so red? I've been knocking on trees, boy, to wonder I'm not dead, dead, to wonder I'm not dead. The mouth bow. Now these stories that came, they were brought over here, many of them. Some of them stayed in Africa. Some of them stayed there, but some of them came across the waters. And we want to do a song and then a story from some of those tales that came across the waters. You know, they had that terrible slave trade. And they brought people over and enslaved folks, black folks from Africa. Well, some of them, they brought with them this instrument. Now, what do you think this instrument looks like? It looks like our banjo. So you go from this rhythm bow to this thing called an akonting. It comes from Gambia. And Gambia was big in the slave trade. They know this one, or we think this one is the nearest relative to our banjo. It's got that floating bridge. It attaches at the back. He's got this hide here for the drum head, because the banjo is just a drum with strings across it. It's got this long, long neck. This one, this one made out of just a dowel rod. Could take a tree limb and do the same thing. This has 3 strings. And this is an old tune, been played in these mountains for a long, long time. Came across the waters with settlers. It goes like this. Froggy went courting, he did ride. Rops dropped by Mr. Gambo. Sword and pistol by his side. Rops dropped by Mr. Gambo. Right, he walked right up Miss Mouse's door. Rops dropped by Mr. Gambo. Danced a little jig upon her floor. Rops dropped by Mr. Gambo. He-mo, hi-mo, chemo, chimo, rowdy, rowdy, ray. Rops dropped periwinkle, flamadoodle, yellow booger. Rops dropped by Mr. Gambo. You remember that old Froggy went a-courting, a lot of versions of old Froggy. The banjo, idea for banjo came across with those first, that slave trade, and landed in the Caribbean islands and finally to the mainland. And they gave us many a tale and stories along with the banjo. Now, a lot of those stories, you might have heard Brer Rabbit's story. Brer Rabbit, he's like a trickster, you know. He tricks old Brer Fox at every chance he can get. And I tell you one from old Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox, and all those are animal stories. This one I'm going to tell you about is Brer Turtle and Brer Fox. One time, it come a big fire in the fields and burned all the fields down. And old Brer Fox was going along the big road and he was hungry. Well, he wanted to have some good turtle soup, but he couldn't find no turtle until he come upon a big snapping turtle in the middle of that road. But the old snapping turtle, trying to get out of that fire, landed on that road, easing across the road, but his whole back shell was scorched. Terrible. And old Brer Fox said, "Hey, Brer Turtle, where you been this long come short?" Brer Fox better watch out, because he'd get on the biting end of that old mud turtle, and he'd have it something holding on to him till the thunder come. So he had to be careful, and old Brer Turtle said, "Well, I've been in a fire." Oh, Brer Fox said, "Yeah. It looks like it burned every bit of you, but it burned your tail off." And old Brer Turtle said, "My tail? There's my tail." And he stuck his tail out the other end, and old Brer Fox grabbed him by the tail instead of by that head. And down the road he went, thinking that he was going to have some turtle soup. All down the road he went, and old Brer Turtle, he thought for a minute. He said, "Oh, Brer Fox, do whatever you want with me, but you can put me in hot water. I love hot water. Just don't throw me in mud. I can't stand no mud. And said, I'll die if I'm in mud. And old Brer Fox said, that's just what I'll do. I'll souse you in some mud. So he got to the nearest pond and soused him in that pond and held him down. And that tail got in that mud. And it got all slimy. And pretty soon, all that Brer Fox had was a handful of mud. And the turtle done gone. He wondered what he's going to do. He got up on the bank, looking around. What was he going to eat? And he heard the old bullfrogs. They were hollering in that pond. And they were saying, Brer Fox, Brer Fox, Brer Fox, Brer Fox. Brer Fox looked over the bank, and he looked and he saw his own reflection. And all the bullfrogs went, there's your brother, there's your brother, there's your brother, there's your brother. Well, old Brer Fox said, I'll be doggone, that is my brother. He's going to get him something to eat before I do. But it looks pretty deep in that water. And all the bullfrogs said, knee deep, knee deep, knee deep, knee deep. He said, knee deep, maybe I should get in. They said, get in, get in, get in, get in. So he jumped in that water, what was over his head. He spluttered and splashed and he carried on. But he finally got out, dusted himself off, and went off into the woods. Come here, Jackie boy. He got out, and he took and went off in the woods, and just like this old dog here, he hated to be in that water. But he finally got himself out, and he went out, and he spluttered out of that pond and went off into the woods, holding his tail, just like this old dog, his tail between his hind legs. And he never bothered with Brer Turtle ever again. Get down there, Jackie boy. I'll see you later. What else do we have here? You know, the banjo, it's got a lot of different cousins here. I'll show you one right now. I'll just show you this little cousin to the banjo here. This is an ngoni. It's from Africa too. It's got 4 strings. It can hit a drone string a coming and a going on it. They got a lot of variations on this in Africa. It's a big continent. But they're a whole lot like our banjo. Now, so the banjo's made a lot of improvements over time, and this is one around the 1890s, made by the S.S. Stewart Company. It was made for children, you know, to start out on a banjo, being a small banjo, but it makes pretty good noise here. Three little children sitting in bed, 2 were sick and the other half dead. Shortening bread, Mom, little baby loves shortening bread. Sent for the doctor, doctor said, feed little children that shortening bread, shortening bread, shortening bread. Mama, little baby loves shortening bread. Oh, put on skillet, flip up the lid, feed little children that shortening bread, shortening bread, shortening bread. Mama, little baby loves shortening bread. Well, that ain't all that Mama gonna do. Mama gonna make some coffee too. Shortening bread, shortening bread. Mama, little baby loves shortening bread. Three little children sitting in bed. Two were sick and the other half dead. Shortening bread, shortening bread. Mama, little baby loves shortening bread. Shortening bread. So these instruments passed along between blacks and whites down through the centuries, learning, picking tunes from each other, some stories as well. You know, the guy in the minstrel tradition come to Catlettsburg. He was playing, his name was Dan Emmett. He was playing a fife on board these river boats up and down the Ohio and the Mississippi. He heaved ashore at Catlettsburg, Kentucky, and he ran to a guy named Ferguson, who played the banjo and taught Dan Emmett how to play a banjo. Now, what did Dan Emmett say about that fella, Ferguson? He said he was black in every way but the color of his skin. Now, what could he meant by that? Well, they played that rollicking, rhythmic style that had been passed on between blacks and whites for over 100 years. Now, Dan Emmett took that banjo on board those steamboats and started the minstrel tradition, playing at all the ports of calls, up and down the Ohio and the Mississippi. It spread all the way south and up and down through these rivers, and became so popular they had orchestras, band orchestras with the piccolo banjos and bass banjos. Can you imagine that? Especially up east in populated cities like Philadelphia and New York. Everybody had a banjo. All from that minstrel tradition passed on between blacks and whites for over 100 years. Those stories and the songs made it into the mountains here a long time ago. And there's another tradition, not from Africa, but way over yonder in the British Isles and from Europe, came this way. Usually stories about people and not animals. And stories about old Jack tales. Stories of monsters and encounters along the way. And this one I'm going to tell is an old tale from right here in our mountains. Now, there was a family over on Pine Top who raised a side of apples. They had an apple orchard with a mort of apples, a side of apples. And every fall they'd pick apples, and they'd take them down and crush them down and make apple butter. They had the pots in the yard, and they had the pots in the yards, and they were cooking them down to make apple butter. Well, there's somebody else up on Pine Top, way up in the head of a holler, lived in a big cliff house under a rock, big old Sally Valley. He had hair right down to his navel. He's a hairy old fella, and when he walked, he was so long, his knuckles about scrubbed the ground, and he come out from under that rock going, "Yeah!" Well, everybody up and down the holler said, "Here comes Sally Valley!" And everybody ran. He come down through each unraveling rail fences and driving horses and cattle up into the mountains. "Yeah!" Well, that family down there, they wondered what they was going to do. So they hollered at each other, "We're going to have to hide." So they went to looking for places. Some went up in the mountains, and old Granny hid behind the door. And here come that Sally Valley. "Yeah!" Well, he come down in that yard, and he looked, and he saw those pots, and he took those pots, and he grabbed one of those pots with his bare hands, and he slurped it down. Yeah! And then he took another pot, slurped it down too. Yeah! And he pulled out up the branch. Well, they all come out from hiding there, everything strewn all over the place. Well, the old feller said, what are we going to do? And the little boy said, yeah, what are we going to do about that Sally Belly? And his pap said, I don't know, he's a meanin'. And old Granny was up on the porch rocking in a rocking chair. Squeak, squeak, squeak. And she said, I'm getting tired of that old thing. Well, what could they do? They went out to pick some more apples in the apple orchard, hand over fist up that tree, picking apples, up in a ladder. Well, directly they heard that noise from way up in the holler. Yeah! Well, they said, here comes the Sally Bally. They got down out of that tree. They ran skedaddle down the road up to the house. They said, where are we going to get? They said, under the pots in the yard. So they lifted up those pots, got scuttled under those pots, and they hid. Well, they hid there for a while. And here come that Sally Bally and Granny. She was on the porch rocking in her rocking chair. She didn't go nowhere. Squeak, 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 squeak. Well, that Sally Bally come down there. He looked at that Granny and said, where are them men folk? And she said, I don't know. He eased up closer to her and said, you better tell me where they are. She said, I don't know. He said, you know where they are, tell me, or I'll tear your house down. She said, come a little closer, and I'll whisper it in your ear. Oh, he's so big, his head about took up that porch, and that big old hairy ear sitting right there. Well, she grabbed her rocking chair, jumped in his ear, and started rocking. Squeak, 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 squeak. He said, stop it! But she kept squeaking, squeak, squeak, squeak. He said, oh, and he jumped around in the yard, jumping his head around. Squeak, squeak, stop that! She wouldn't stop. She kept squeaking, squeak, squeak, squeak. Well, he saw a big rock. He said, I'll knock her out against this rock. He went across that yard, across the road, that big old cliffside rock. Whoopity whoop, whoopity whoop. He threw his head. Oh. Well, he didn't knock her out. He knocked himself out, and he lay there in the road. Granny pulled out of his ear, hair by hair, pulled her old rocking chair, and went up to the porch and started rocking. Squeak, 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 squeak. Well, nobody's seen that old Sally Bally. He finally come to, but he didn't want to fool with that Granny no more. No, sir. He went up the holler, and they could hear him some nights, children, in the fall of the year. Yeah, Jackie, you ever heard the Sally Bally? You ever heard him up there in the mountains? You can hear him sometimes. He'll go, yeah! And, Jackie boy, what are you going to do when you hear that big old Sally Bally up there? Yeah!